So we'll get started here on March 24th. Heidi Brooks here. Brock Cadero. Not yet. David Cunha. He was here.
He was here, yeah.
I don't see him.
If he comes back, I'll let him back in.
All right. Terry Ham.
Here.
Sean McDonald.
Here.
Steve Mello. Not yet. Brian O'Hare.
Here.
Steve Taylor.
Here.
Mary Waite. Not here yet. No, Dave was here. Also, Sean McGinnis.
I am here.
Anthony Savastano.
He's muted, but I see.
I can see him. And Melanie Perry.
Yeah.
And
Also, I'll welcome. Oh,
Dave
here
Cunha's
comes
son is way back in.
Oh, I just
see
got
him
back
coming.
in. I'm back here.
There he is. So
I thought
David
for a
just-
second there, you thought I was Jerry Winkler.
Uh-oh. And I welcome Kevin and Kim Estes. And we're a little more formal by having the waiting room because we had Zoom bombers at our last meeting. So thank you, Sean, for dealing with our waiting room. The first thing we'll do tonight, actually out of order, we'll be going right to the minutes of our last meeting. So if you could pull those up. That would be the February 24th minutes.
They look good to me. I can make a move to accept the minutes.
Okay, that was David.
Yes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian, seconding that. All right, I'll call Heidi Brooks, yes. Still no Brock. David Cunha,
Yes.
Terry Ham,
I'm gonna abstain because I can't remember getting them. I can't find them on my thing, so,
they came today.
okay.
With,
I got the other information, but sometimes when email comes from the town, it comes as like a mail attachment or something, so,
okay. Today's
Hey,
email
they
was
came
from
from-
Melanie.
Yeah, it came from Melanie, yeah.
yeah, I'll just abstain.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sean
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
okay. Brian O'Hare,
Yes,
Steve Taylor,
Yes.
okay. I still don't see Brock, Steve Mello, or Mary here, so that shall pass. And now, looking at our minutes for this evening, if you'd pull that up, that came today, Terry, from,
Yep, I see it now. Yep,
okay,
I just got it. I'm sorry, I missed it. I got your email, but I didn't notice Melanie's yet.
nope, not a problem.
Okay.
So I just want to pull it up. So on our agenda, we have discussed charter changes to increase municipal involvement. And what you should have received from me was information I received from Sean McGinnis, which was an inquiry. So you should have these two other documents, the Amherst document and then a municipal involvement study from Michael Ward.
Email.
It's an email. It was attached to the email that I sent to you yesterday.
right. I don't have a study by him, but I have the Amherst PDF.
You have
Right.
the Amherst charter and our email correspondence between myself and Mike. Ward.
Yes. I have
That's all
that.
it is. The email correspondence was study. So Michael Ward is from the
Collins Center.
Collins Center with
Mass
UMass
Boston.
Dartmouth. And at our
Boston.
last meeting, we were talking about, how do we get more involvement with municipal government, either to run for open seats, which is not necessarily a charge of our group, but it certainly is something that we've discussed, especially as we address each and every article that has talking points on the number of town meeting members, whether people are taking out papers to run for positions, that sort of discussion of involvement in the town works keeps coming up. So Sean McGinnis, I'll let you talk a little bit more of
Okay,
your
so
correspondence.
this has been going on for years, and it's not specific to Dartmouth. There's not a lot of civic involvement anymore, and particularly as it relates to elected positions. So we're not seeing contested races, or when we see them, it's very infrequent. So we're looking at that as we look at the charter. There's a lot of not a lot, but there's a fair number of elected boards and committees. So, and the turnover has been light, which is not always an issue, but you haven't had a lot of contested races. So we were curious when we had this discussion if there's been any studies statewide about municipal involvement. And I think you can see from Michael Ward's email, there haven't been studies, but they do they have a lot of involvement with charters and updating charters. And he's saying, that they're seeing the same issues statewide. Amherst has created a position, I forgot what they called it, a residence advisory committee, which is kind of weird because we're having issues with people being on committees and they create a committee to put
study
people
the-
on the
yeah.
committee. But they've also created a position to kind of work publicly, more of like a public information officer to recruit committee members. So, I'll contact, and then if Framingham's done something similar, I'll contact both communities to see how successful they've been. I'm curious. I guess I'm a little, I'm not as optimistic that they're successful, but we'll see. But I think, and he did mention that, and we've heard this. I have heard this from other communities that they get more involvement when people are volunteering as opposed to running for elected offices. So a lot of people don't want to go through the process of going through an election, facing, disappointment or a loss, or putting themselves out there like that. Thankfully, Kevin has chosen to do that. So that's great for the community and the planning board. But I think a lot of people are reluctant. And you all would know as well. So, I mean, you're out in the community talking to people, and I'm sure, you can tell me different if you're hearing things differently, but I think that's a common theme.
Brian?
Yeah, Heidi, when the question came up about attendance at town meeting, I did some research, and I found that a lot of towns indeed were having, they seem to be having problem. There was a lot of same issue. Seemed to be sensing that there were issues, but I did do some research, and the majority of the things that I found were town meeting oriented, because what they did is they formed their committee from people that were elected to town meeting, and then they used that committee to improve town meeting and then therefore improve town government by suggesting to town administrations and select boards different things that could be done theoretically. The issue I had was I don't know exactly what the outcome of a lot of these things were. But I came up with I would say about 28 pages worth of stuff that I had clipped from various towns around the Commonwealth that had looked at different ways to improve citizens' participation in government. So I think there's a number of ways to skin the cat, and maybe the consulting company or if other people on this committee would like to do some research, there might be a number of different ways, maybe along the line of an appointed somebody in the town administration or a town meeting doing something, or even other ways to improve citizen participation.
Heidi?
John McDonnell?
Yeah, I just sent everybody the ballot for April in an email. So if you have a chance to look at it, Contested races only this year. Town clerk, there's 2 people running for 1. And Board of Health, you have 2 people running for 1. Planning Board for the 5-year seat, you have 2 people running for 1. Uncontested, Select Board Lot 1, Select Board Lot 2, School Committee, there's only a single person, Housing Authority, and the Planning Board 2-year term, and Library Board of Trustees is 2. Park Board and Rec, there's 1 person, there's 2 slots open. Assessors, nobody's running. So the assessor this year will be a write-in candidate, and it could be somebody with about 3 votes. So, and then town meeting members, you have 15 members. For precinct 1, you have 3, 6, 9 people running, 6 open seats. Number 2, you have 15, you only have 5 people running, 10 open seats. Precinct 3, 15, you have 40, 15 for 28, 38, 33 open seats, 15 for a 3-year term, 14 for a 2-year term, 14 for a 1-year term. Precinct 4, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 out of 14 people running. Precinct 5, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of 14 running. Precinct 6, 7, 8 people out of 14. 7, you have 7 out of 15. Precinct 8, you actually have more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 returns and 3 new. So you have actually 15 people running for 14 seats. And precinct 9, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14 people out of 15 seats, which is precinct 9. That's generally unheard of. So there's the proof right there in your face
Right.
that generally half the town meeting seats are going to be just under half of the town meeting seats this year are going to be write-in ballots with 1 or 2 votes. Unacceptable.
Right, which
Totally-
is
totally
exactly what
unacceptable.
we've been talking about.
Right. It's unacceptable. It's ridiculous. It's excuse me. I got to switch to the camera because
Okay,
it's either we have to figure out a way to get more participation into town government by getting more people involved or reducing the number of town meeting, or it's getting to the point where there's just going to have to be a total organizational change in the government of this town. And if that happens, it can only be an elected charter commission that can do that. We can't do it.
right. I am curious though, with this, as we've said before, there's only a few precincts that maximize their seats, like 7, 8, and 9.
9 usually always, 9 was always the one that you had. It was the hardest one to get in.
But
That
they
was the
have
hardest.
changed those boundaries. My house hasn't changed, but I've been in precinct 9 and precinct 7.
I've
I'm
been
now in
1, 2, and 4.
So, I mean, it may be the way that it's been changed.
Well, you went down from, there used to be 10 precincts,
Yeah,
and now we went down to 9 precincts, and that was the last change. Was the change, and that change is coming again.
hmm
So, and when that happens, when the lines are redrawn, everybody's going to run because your precincts are redrawn. So now now you're going to have 33 more people running for the precincts again.
yeah.
And wait till you see what that ballot's going to look like.
But this is certainly concerning where half the seats are open seats. And certainly if you don't want to get all the, get the signatures, tell a few friends, and this is what we've been talking about. How can you be elected with fewer votes than the signatures you would have had to get to put your name on the ballot?
Exactly. It's like most people saying, I'm not going to run. Why
see
should I
you,
go
Brian.
out and why should I go out and knocking on doors in January and
Like,
February?
just tell a few friends.
Right, exactly. Sign, sign my name, sign my name, sign my name.
Brian O'Hare?
Yeah, I hear the problem, but I don't think the town does very much to help make sure that people are aware of the vacancies and how they can apply for vacancies. For instance, many towns in the research that I mentioned, and we do it on the annual census, collect email addresses. And they ask people to opt in, opt out to get information about what the town's doing. So one of the things before you start talking about changing government or anything else is to educate people and let them know how they can participate. So a very simple thing might be to collect these email addresses, opt in, opt out, whatever the proper procedure is. And when elections come up or a board appointments are available, is to send out emails letting people know that and how they could participate and how they could apply. So I don't think the town or many towns in Massachusetts do a lot of things about educating people on how to participate in government.
We're doing the charter review now. So you can't say, oh, let's tell people, oh, you should all run, and then let's wait 2 years and see if they run. And then
Why
change
can't
the charter.
you?
Can I finish
Why
talking,
can't-
please? Can I finish talking, please? We're doing the charter review now. Every 10 years, we do a charter review, and I doubt we want to wait another 10 years to try to fix this problem. This has been a problem for a long time, ever since I've been involved in the town.
Where do you have numbers that show that it's declining?
Yes.
Participation in
Yeah,
town
I mean,
meeting?
Sean just read the ballot to you, and I think if we go back the last 5 or 10 years, if you did a study and looked back probably over 25, 30 years of just election ballots, local election ballots, I think you'd see a huge disparity between.
Well, who
25
can
years.
do that study?
Well, we
Study,
could-
it's right there in the town reports as far as the election goes. It's right
Yeah.
Go
there,
add them up.
historical data.
Show me some data.
Town clerk's office.
What are you
I
yelling at?
agree. Hold on. I agree with what Brian's saying. And, you guys have been involved for a long time. And you have your opinion about what the problem is and what needs to be done. We don't have any data. And I've gone to the town clerk's website, Sean, and I've collected information and I've counted, because you can't put it in a spreadsheet because it's a scanned PDF. So it's very difficult to get that information from the town clerk. If we had that data, and I honestly thought when we started this process that we would be looking at some of that data before we started making decisions about how to change things. I get you've been saying every single meeting that you feel that this is what needs to happen. I'm just not seeing the data that backs it up. And what I saw honestly was more participation in recent online meetings. So, I mean, I think it's really hard. You can have an opinion, but I'd be good to state it on facts.
No,
Well, you're saying more participation of those who have already run and
Right.
been elected. Sean's talking about people who aren't even
Yeah, I
running. So
understand.
it doesn't matter if we have
I
50,
understand what you're
if
saying.
we have 40% empty seats, we could still have 100% participation, but we're still lacking 40% of the
No,
town.
that's not the point. The point is that
That's my
you should
point.
let people know.
well, I think, Brian and everybody, this is an opportunity to have these discussions, and we
Right.
certainly wouldn't go to the public and say, hey, we don't think there's participation, so we're presenting this. This is when we go back to the workshops, but we would certainly pull data together. The state computers has a lot of information that I think we can work with the town clerk on pulling out, but we can go through past ballots. We can do the legwork, but now's the time to have these discussions, so we're not pulling all the information together. And so, if people think it's, hey, this is an issue, we should look into this more so we can present it to the public, then yeah, we'll start pulling the data together. We don't always.
Excellent. That's perfect as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned.
At this
Perfect.
point, the ballot is set, so no one can take out papers again.
Correct.
So, and this is the only time in each April, when we elect town meeting members.
Correct.
We don't do it in the fall.
Nope.
So one of the things that we could say is we could use that reverse 911 when it's time to take out papers for everyone in the town to get a phone call saying, your, Dartmouth government needs you.
Well, and this
Between-
goes back to.
Window for taking out papers is until such and such. Please
And-
come to the town clerk's office.
Right, so
Heidi,
we'll,
could I make a comment?
well, just one thing
Oh,
I want to say,
sorry.
like, I'll contact Amherst and Framingham. Now they've established these positions and these committees that singular task, and I'll see what they've implemented and what's been successful and what hasn't, and I'll bring that back.
Okay, Steve Taylor?
Yeah, I
Alright.
just want to first of all say that reverse 911 is one way, but it would be vastly more useful to us to collect all the email addresses, as Brian said. That would then become a public document. They could be used for a million things. And the other question I'd love to hear before we write anything in the charter, I'd love to hear the pros and cons of making town meetings smaller. So it's more likely to be filled from every one of however many precincts there would be. I'm very skeptical about the idea of appointing too many more positions because that makes the town less democratic. But I understand the reasons for doing so, but I think the email address collection is a no-brainer, and I'm not sure it gets done by the charter. It may get done some other way, but it should have been done a long time ago.
We have email addresses of all the town meeting representatives. We have email addresses of many residents in town. People can opt in on the website with their email addresses for a variety of things. We also capture email addresses for sticker sales and licenses and permitting. So we
Are
have
they
a
all
lot of
then
email
put in a
addresses.
central place, Sean, so that we have one as big a list as we can of our 31,
Right,
34,000?
but with email addresses, they're not a panacea. A lot of people
No.
ignore emails. A lot of people have an email address and get rid of it. So they're not highly effective. They are effective, but not,
Yeah, no, I understand
You-
that.
you- Sorry, Steve, you have to do this, you have to have redundant systems. You have to have email addresses, reverse 911, and a whole bunch of things to keep reminding people that there are these opportunities to participate in government. It's not one thing, it can be a number of things. And I've collected, Heidi, if you'd
Yes.
like me to, I've collected about 2 or 3 pages on the pros and cons of reducing the number of participants in town meeting and a whole bunch of other things, which I can send to you and you can send off to
Okay.
people. And I'll be able to do that tomorrow.
That would be great.
Sean McDonald?
There are people who don't want their email addresses public and they don't want to give their email addresses out. They want to keep it to themselves. Me, I
That's
don't care.
fine.
I
So
have
you
a
opt
town,
in?
I have a town email address. I have 2 work email addresses. I have 3 personal ones. Why I got 3 personal ones, I don't know. It's just the way it happens. So, I mean, to me, it doesn't make a difference. I can be contacted anywhere, but there are a lot of people who don't want their email addresses out here, who don't want to be contacted. And I know of at least 24 people who've lived in this town for over 30 years and have never, ever voted in a town election. Why?
Yep.
Well, what's the point? I mean, and there are people in this town that they don't even know that the town has elections in April. But yet it's there in the newspaper. It's there in
You're
meetings
right.
discussed. It's there, it's published. And the signs go up
First of
on
all,
election days, and still you get
first of all,
only 2.
first of all,
Brian, please let me finish.
Brian, let him finish.
There's only on the average the last few years about 2,000 people out of this town that actually vote. There's
Right.
2,000 people that control what happens in this town. And that's not really fair to the other people. But you know something? Those other people don't take the time to go out and vote. So that's on them. So, if I was a savvy politician, which I'm really not, I would want to know who those 2,000 people are. And that's where I would spend my money putting out the information to vote for me. I don't care. I don't care about, I can tell you right now, in my neighborhood, my street alone, okay, there's about 40 people who are registered voters. 38 of them don't vote in town elections. My wife and myself do.
Hmm.
We're the only ones in
You
our
can say
street.
your wife didn't vote.
Oh, well,
I
no, she
would,
does.
I would
Does she,
appreciate
does she
it.
vote for you, Sean?
Probably
Heidi,
not.
I would really appreciate it if we could have a conversation without spending a lot of time talking about our own personal anecdotes, and instead look at some facts and some objective information, which we don't have tonight. So maybe tonight we could just get on with looking at the charter and going through and doing what we normally do. And then when we have some information that is actually factual, then maybe we could pick that up and say what we think, because it sounds like we have a lot of ideas about solutions, and some of us don't think they're good ideas, and some of us do, and all it is an opinion. And that's just a waste of everybody's time.
Well,
Okay.
personal anecdotes is personal experience. Okay. You know, this is just not from willy-nilly. This is experience that I've gone through.
I know. I know
Okay.
that. I know. I believe you. And I know that you have way more experience than me, Sean. But I disagree with the idea of decreasing town meeting members as a solution to this problem. And I don't have any reason to change my mind on it except for your personal experience.
Well, no, we talked about other towns. We talked about the state's.
Anthony, I didn't ask you. I just said it just feels like it wastes time to go on and on with this. And, you know.
No, but you
just feel
keep
like-
saying we don't have other information, and we do. We had the state's recommendation. We have other towns, and I've given you evidence of other towns who have, it's our size, who have town meetings in the 200s. The state says we're far above the recommended
I
amount
guess
of town meeting
my,
members.
my biggest worry is that we have a very large number of town meeting slots. And if we say that this is the number to conduct a town meeting, this is the number that we can call the town meeting to order, and we don't have enough people to call a town meeting to order, we're gonna be in a big heap of trouble.
That
You
hasn't
keep
happened.
saying it's anecdotal. Terry and Brian, with all due respect, I gotta tell you, I think you're dead wrong on this issue.
No
We've been
kidding.
doing this for
So,
No kidding,
what
almost a
I'm
couple
willing
of
to do is-
decades.
So
Yeah.
show
What I'm
us
willing
the-
to do,
show
I
us
will
the
meet with
data.
Sean McGinnis separately. Sean, if you could give me, put me into your schedule. I don't know who does your scheduling. What I will do is do some background looking at information that the town has on the running for positions. I'll do a database of that. I can go up and get that information, and I'm happy to do it because I think the committee is screaming tonight about data. I just want to let
Everybody
everybody know
notes here,
that.
Heidi, so I'll help you pull together the information, you know,
Thank
we'll put
you.
it together. So, yeah, definitely.
So Mary Waite has joined us, and Steve Mello has joined us, and Brock has joined us as well. So everybody is here, Melanie. I don't know if you can see them all on your screen.
Heidi, I don't know if
Thank
you
you,
see,
Sean
Mary has
McDonald,
some,
for forwarding that ballot, because I think you can't fight with those numbers when it says at the top of each of the precincts town meeting list, vote not for more than, and the number is either 13 or 14 or 15, depending on the precinct. And there's, half those numbers are people interested in running. That is, again, goes back to, something we've been discussing the whole time. But tonight we will move into Article 4, which is the executive branch. We have a good number of holes, and I hope you've all looked at the holes coming through, and there's certainly a theme there, but I will continue in my note taking as we move into the executive branch. And we can see section 4-1, the organization of town agencies, is a simple cleanup of language, but please make sure you've read through that. And then into section A about the bylaws, which, as you know, we do have a bylaw study committee trying to do the work, but we don't have enough people serving on the committee, correct?
it's a great example. we've gotten 0 applicants that want to be on it. So we've advertised for months, so we have had no participation.
And then the administrative plan. I would like to propose in the paragraph when it talks about whenever the select board proposes such a plan, the select board shall hold one or more public hearings on the proposal. Notice of such hearing shall be published in the local newspaper, blah, blah, blah. But could we also say, be announced on the town's website and social media outlets? So we can make sure that that is,
Yeah, I know we talked about that early on, just the whole charter changing any newspaper advertising to include website or some other means.
How about if we just leave it shall be published? Because putting it on the website is publishing it, you know. I don't know, be honest with you, putting it in a local newspaper, you know, who reads the Standard Times anymore? And the Chronicle is just pathetic.
well, it's a
More
repeat of the
people read,
Standard
more
Times.
people read the Dartmouth Weekly than they do the Chronicle.
We can ask
So,
Steve
I don't
Taylor,
know,
maybe,
Anthony, would
Steve,
would
maybe your,
just the
your
term
news
published be enough?
never happen.
Well, we would certainly publish that stuff. I would also point out that Dartmouth Week is pretty good. They're not big, but their 2 reporters are true professionals.
Does
And-
published cover all the options that we've discussed, Anthony, as the legal person on the committee? Does the word published work?
And which document are we talking about?
We're talking about our Article 4 in the paragraph that starts with the word whenever, where it goes into local newspaper, not less than 7 days, not more than 14 days before the hearing. Could we just
you
say published?
Are you looking at something you sent me today or
No, I'm looking
I'm
at
sorry.
something you sent.
today?
Yeah,
No,
section
Oh, the Article 4.
Article
4-1,
changes.
the paragraph after B. Just about advertising for the hearing. It says newspaper, but brought up a larger discussion about whether it should just be published, just published, period.
I can do this.
I think we might want to identify where it's published.
Okay, so one of the things we were saying
Yeah, I
was,
know, this is a tough one because this is a moving target because 5 years from now, whatever exists now might not even,
right,
there might not be local newspapers 5 years.
right.
I think using the word published is a good idea and perfectly complete enough. I would be very concerned with social media. That's a dangerous place to publish. And I don't know if there's a way to phrase that, but published would be fine in a newspaper, fine in a reverse 911, fine in a on a website, anything that's curated, but uncurated stuff is a dangerous place to publish.
So Anthony, could we say after of such hearing shall be published, instead of in, just say not less than 7 days and not more than 14 days before the hearing? Wipe out local.
Why don't you say something then like on the town website and in any other location that the select board deems appropriate or something like that?
That'd be good.
Okay,
Just to let you know, Merriam-Webster definition of published, produced or released for distribution in a book, magazine, newspaper, etc. Citing a variety of published sources. And then it says having one where it's published. That's one. The other one is, another one is of a book, journal piece, or music prepared and issued for public sale or readership. And then the second one is printed or made available online so as to be generally known. So if
In the
I'm
absence,
comfortable with the word published to
yep, I
be
am
all
too.
encompassing.
I am too. I just wondered if Anthony had a legal definition, but since there isn't one, I think published makes perfect sense. Because by then, who knows where you put things? It's supposed to be, it used to be in the police department or in the town hall.
It had to be in the libraries,
Yeah.
town hall,
Yeah.
and in the police
Places where
station.
people go. And I mean, people go to Facebook, so I don't see what the harm is in putting in on Facebook. It comes from the town, so I think that makes sense. Published is a good word.
I agree with published. If you were going to get any more detailed than that, then just say electronically, because no one's reading the Standard Times, no one's reading the Chronicle. You're absolutely right, but they are reading our own official Facebook page, and that's a safe place to have it posted. So if you're going to go any more definite than public, I just say electronically or electronically in print,
Right.
but not much any more than that.
But I
Public,
think you would need to say in a location available to the general public. I don't have
published in
Facebook.
print
Okay.
I've
or
never used.
electronically. That would probably take care of it. Published in print and or electronically.
Yeah, that would take care of it.
I like what Anthony said, though, available to the general public so that people don't think that we're hiding it.
Okay. then
Burying
just
it.
Because
say-
I don't have Facebook. I don't ever
just-
intend to have
then
Facebook.
just
And
say-
I will just say that I still read the paper Standard Times, Chronicle,
don't.
Dartmouth Week, and anything else, and
Good for
USA
you.
Today.
Is there anything worth reading left in there or?
No.
No,
Why don't you just say published in print or electronically and available to the public?
Steve, I gotta tell you, the day the Standard Times got rid of their sports page is the day I canceled my subscription.
well, it is a pretty sad rag.
I used to represent them years ago too.
Ooh. So.
That's what
excuse me,
happened
did you
then.
capture that change in that paragraph?
Would everybody be comfortable saying published electronically and or in print and available and readily available for the public?
I'm gonna count on Melanie. Are you taking that note down? Okay.
I like that. That's good.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up for that.
Mary Waite's screen is not working, but she's in agreement.
With an exclamation point. Way to go, Mary.
Yes. So then the
Yeah,
next
She just doesn't want to be
paragraph-
seen. Come on, Mary.
I guess we shouldn't bring up the town crier then, see if that should be added.
Will that be a paid position?
Yeah.
Dartmouth Devon.
Well, can we get a volunteer for that? I don't know.
I want that great suit that the guy from Dartmouth, England wore. Then I'll do it for free.
The necklace.
Oh, yeah.
That was the shiznits.
All right, so move on to the next paragraph. An organization or reorganization plan shall become effective at the expiration of 60 days following the date that the proposed is submitted to the town meeting, unless the town meeting shall, by a majority vote within such period, vote to disapprove the plan. The town meeting may vote only to approve or to disapprove the plan and may not vote to amend or to alter it.
What the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, I was gonna say clear as mud to me.
Yeah, it's very wordy.
I think an attorney wrote this. What do you think?
Just out of
I
curiosity.
don't know, Steve, who
maybe-
wrote it? I wasn't around then.
Just out of curiosity, what is it?
I think if you were gonna reorganize the town, so say combine, well,
Am I reading that?
recreation with,
Okay, like we do
the
with
building
recreation.
department.
Okay.
So they would vote on that.
But they
or-
couldn't amend it at the meeting.
Right,
So last meeting, they combined cemetery with parks, right? Last town charter, that would be an
Yeah.
example. Okay.
Well, no, because that was a charter change. That's different.
It didn't come
That's-
from the
That's
floor.
not a reorganization plan. That's a charter change
Oh.
approved by the town meeting and by the voters. That's different.
I think the last reorganization plan we did was the reorganization of town hall, and that got turned down at town meeting. That's when everybody was talking about changing town hall and moving somebody somewhere, and and this office was supposed to go to that office, and everybody.
wanted to
had-
do all the
everybody
permitting.
Was in a snit about it, and they killed it at town meeting.
And they
I
want to
think
do
that's
all the
what-
permitting.
That was the
on-
last one. That was over 12 years ago.
Seems like yesterday.
Hey, those cookies smell good.
Ah,
Mother just
Can
made a
I
whole
have
bunch of
one,
cookies
Sean?
for the doctor's
I know you got to
office
share
tomorrow.
with everybody.
No, my mother's got a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and she brings cookies to the office. So she just made a whole bunch, and she just walked down with some.
Mhm.
They smell
But
good.
if we move to
Steve,
the
can you work
next,
on that technology with your new website so you can deliver the cookies to us all?
That would be a bit of a miracle.
didn't they have it on Star Trek? Couldn't you just beam it over to me, Scotty?
I mean, I would, to be honest with you, I would just leave that the language as is. I mean, this,
As with the changes
With the
that
changes,
Anthony
yeah.
put in.
yeah.
I'm going to say that about the next paragraph as
Mhm.
well. The select board may, through the administrative plan, and you can continue to read.
Heidi, this is Dave
Yeah.
Cunha. 1, 2,
Dave, yes.
3, 4, 5 sentences down, 5 lines down. 1, 2, 3, 5. It's talking about the ability to move the money, transfer of funds. And it says that the funds, which the funds were voted by the town. But the town doesn't vote for funds, right? That's the town meeting.
I think that's what it was referring to, town meeting.
Yeah, that's what I think is, and I know we make a difference in saying the difference.
Yeah, I think we should say town meeting. So Anthony, do you see that? 1, 2, 3, 4, as he said, 5th line down. So far is consistent with the use for which the funds were voted by, should just say town meeting. The powers and so far as it is consistent with the use for which the funds were voted by the town meeting.
Trying to find it.
It would be on your second page. First large
Yeah,
paragraph.
but I'm doing, you have the PDF version. I'm doing it in the Word version. so I
Oh,
can
sorry.
change. That's fine. Yep, got it.
The appropriation of one town agency to another.
Yeah, I got it. Yep. Melanie, you don't have to worry about that one. I got that one.
Okay.
Next paragraph looks okay.
Did everybody get a chance to read the next one?
Yep.
Ooh.
I'm going to move to section 4.2, appointment procedures. And we see that this was amended by town meeting October 18th, 2011, and approved by the voters April 3rd, 2012. Previous to this, there was only the merit principle was the only section that existed. So this amendment added B.
Okay, added B, thank you. Because I'll be honest with you, any of the appointments that I've made, I've never looked at the person's fitness. It's just,
Thank God, Sean.
yeah, well, I mean,
I don't think they mean physical fitness.
No, I think it's to the position.
Okay.
mm,
What is the question? Should appointments to multiple member bodies be included as well? What does that mean?
Because this is only talking about, the first paragraph, it talks about town officers. The second paragraph talks about appointed boards, committees, commissions, task force, etc. And above, if you recall, we defined multiple member bodies. We're talking about appointments to the ZBA, Concom, other things as well. Those are defined as multiple member bodies earlier in the charter.
Document.
So do you want the merit principle language to apply to multiple member bodies as well as to just town officers?
it would make sense to me to apply merit and skills to any appointed office.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're coming up to the reappointments coming up shortly.
I think you could just add it after town officers and members of multiple member body.
Or you just put town officers / multiple member bodies and employees.
You think, Anthony, that covers it?
Yeah, I just scrolled up to look at my definition of multiple member bodies. If you have the old version, it's in Article 1, Section 1-7 on definitions.
Right back.
It's multiple member body shall mean any board, commission, committee, subcommittee, or other body consisting of 3 or more persons, whether elected, appointed, or otherwise constituted, including but not including town meeting. I'm sorry. So it was a very broad definition. So I think it makes sense to insert. I can insert that here.
Okay. Let's talk about section B. This falls on the town administrator to retain submissions of any person expressing an interest in serving in a town office position for at least 2 years from the time of submission and without regard for the current status of said town officers or position.
We do that.
So I just
So
added, so
this
it says,
captures what is happening.
Does that 2-year rule change any of the state record retention laws?
good question.
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's a record retention law for applications for committees, but there is one for job applications.
This one is not talking about employees because it's saying volunteers, for which the town is seeking volunteers.
Right.
Right, I don't know what the rule is on that, what the state's retention rules, if any, are on that. I have no idea.
Okay. I think we're all set here. Let's move on to
I
section.
can look. Do you want me to look, Steve, to make sure?
I don't think it's gonna be an issue if it hasn't been brought up yet. I was just curious if that would have been a 2-year rule at the time and it's been changed since the original charter.
Well, I think if we're concerned about employees, we would have to add another line about employees because this is really just talking about volunteers to
Right.
appointed boards, committees, commissions, task force, or other programs, activities for which the town is seeking volunteers.
Why would we have employees in the first paragraph then? Why wouldn't we be removing that?
I'm sorry, Terry, what was that?
I'm just wondering.
Under
why
merit
employees-
principle.
Why employees are in here at all? If aren't there labor laws that govern hiring and human service personnel laws that require that? I think if we're including employee in the first paragraph, we probably have to include it in the second, but it sounds like this is about volunteers, right? Volunteer positions. So my suggestion would be to take the word out.
I think we should take employees out.
They're not, I thought you said employees weren't in there.
No, they're in the merit principle, part A.
Why would you take it out? You don't
What?
want employees to be appointed based on merit?
Yeah.
There's
Well,
there's no law against appointing somebody because they're nicer than another person.
No, I think
Laws are only against discrimination or doing something illegal.
The
If
point
I
that
had
I'm
somebody that
making-
came into my office
Yeah.
and I had 3 people and one was more talented than the other, but I just said, I don't think I
The
want
point that
that
I'm
person.
making is that if
Don't
this
have to
applies
hire
to
that person.
employees, put it in both paragraphs, and if it doesn't apply to employees, take it out. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think this applies more to volunteers.
Paragraph B does. Paragraph A,
Paragraph
Yes.
8.
employees and multiple member bodies. Paragraph B is volunteers, correct? That's how I read it.
Oh, okay, that's possible. I didn't, yeah, I guess it's the only place where employees are is in one, so yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, I don't remember what the driving force of this was. But
As was said, the employees are covered under labor laws and the information may be a little bit different. If we move down to section 4.3, Department of Budget and Finance, I think the word scope, where it says establishment scope, I think scope should be capitalized.
yeah, general code does weird, they don't capitalize things that I would capitalize. If you go down further, 4.4B, powers and duties, same thing. So general code has their own way of publishing these things.
Okay,
And they changed some. If you look at this version versus the version that we had prior to it being published by general code, it reads a little different. So I don't have a problem with capitalizing. I just don't know what general code will do.
oh,
with it.
okay. Do we have a chief procurement officer?
Yeah, but
Right.
not a specific position. So our finance director is also
Is also that, okay.
he's the treasurer, the chief procurement officer. So
That's also a state qualified position, I believe.
Right. Some towns, the town administrator does it. Some towns, the treasurer or budget
All right.
director does it. Do we have, Sean, do they actually have separate divisions in the Department of Budget and Finance? I saw
yes.
this, I was on a collections division, accounting. I know they have an accounting division, but do they have a separate procurement division? I mean, I guess.
No, not a
Greg's
procurement,
office, right?
not a procurement division. He's got, and not really, he's the treasurer, he has an assistant treasurer. I mean, you could break it out like that. I mean, or you could, I think it's fine to leave them. I noticed that too, but I mean, it's really just,
Okay.
it covers procurement, accounting, collections, treasury.
Yeah. So I was just curious.
I think we're probably better off not listing every single one. That way, at some point, if we decided that an assistant wasn't needed or 2 assistants were needed, we wouldn't have to come back to this.
Right.
But it does say, under the organization consists of a treasury division, collection division, accounting division, and procurement division. But we're not specifically saying who's doing that.
No, and it fits with what we have, a town accountant, a town collector, and procurement under the treasurer, treasury department.
Yeah, and it doesn't say you need to have an individual staff member in each division.
Right.
Sort of like Parks and Recreation, right? So one person.
So now we're talking about the director of budget and finance and I'm sorry.
No, I'm
Anthony?
sorry, Heidi. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
That's all right.
This kind of surprised me, Sean, too. I didn't realize that Greg had the power subject to select board approval to appoint the collector or the accountant. I thought that would either be you or the select board directly. I was surprised when I saw that.
Well, I guess it's more of like if you think of it as an org chart, it's a chain of command. So the town administrator has oversight over the
Right.
director of budget and finance. So it would be,
In terms of appointment specifically,
right.
it says shall appoint, subject to the approval of the select board.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
Is
it's,
that the way it works in reality? And do we want that?
I,
Or should
no,
that
I
be
mean,
up to
it's,
your-
it's a collaborative effort now. So we have a team and part of the team. So we would present that to the select board, much just like, I think under town administrator has the authority to hire department heads. But it's usually a team, including the members of the select board.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about, and I'm not talking about the current personnel, but I'm just thinking if you get a person in there other than Greg who says, no, you can't have a say.
It's right
Sean,
here.
it's mine. It's in the charter. I say who gets appointed.
So
I didn't-
should we
It seems
in,
like it should be, I don't know, those powers of
between
those
the word
positions as
shall
department
and
heads, I
appoint,
would think would eat.
can we add the word collaboratively?
Well,
I think
I'm
that
gonna do
muddies
that.
the water.
What, Steve Mello? I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
I just feel that that muddies the waters because
Yeah.
if people can't act collaboratively, you can't force it. But to Anthony's thought, the select board has oversight and can overrule the director of budget and finance.
I mean, you can put subject to the approval of the town administrator and select board.
Okay. Sean McDonald,
yeah,
did you hear that or not?
subject to the town administrator and.
Oh, you're too busy eating cookies, Sean.
No. Too crunchy. No, I mean, the only person out of all those divisions that in my term that we appointed was Gary, the town collector. I mean, Greg has been there since before me. Donna has been there before me. And Sean and.
No,
Gary-
Donna wasn't there.
Yeah.
Sean,
Donna's been there.
Donna was there, but she moved up and was appointed as town accountant while you
Yeah,
were
that
there.
And she's been a town accountant for a while.
Yeah, but Greg, there was somebody else appointed for a couple of days before Donna was given that job.
Yeah, and they left.
But it sounds like the language and adding the town administrator and select board in covers that section C.
I mean, when,
Or I guess, Sean, you could just report to the select board your thoughts and.
I mean, we
rely on
negotiate the
them to-
contracts for them, so.
Okay. All right, I'll leave it be then.
All right,
I
so
just-
now we're gonna move to
I was
section
just thinking out loud.
4-4. And now we can rake Sean McGinnis over the coals in this one.
Oh, good.
Yeah, let's put in some really mean stuff here.
Yeah. Sean, is your current contract 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
I think one thing that I missed, either I missed it or it's not here for a reason. It talks a lot about hiring, supervision, and termination. Those are the three biggies, but you also got disciplinary actions, which is maybe a 3-day rest from work. But I was wondering, do you have anything like that, Sean, or is that?
Yeah, so it's not stated in here, but I oversee the personnel director. So yes, that's our human resources.
Okay, so that resources takes that, okay.
So let's make sure that we add that if we need to.
Well,
But
I
with-
think supervision would, I think discipline would fall under the supervision, don't you, Sean?
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm reading here, what's that? Supervised director be responsible through department heads and supervisors for the efficient administration of the town. I think that's broad.
Well, I think the reason I asked it was that I worked in HR in a previous life here. And there are different levels of people who are doing disciplinary action. Like so if there's somebody wanted to request a review of that, it would go up to the next level. So I don't know if it was like supervisors did that in Dartmouth. And then if the employee doesn't like it, he can appeal it to Sean as a town administrator. I didn't know how that worked.
It's,
But if
is-
I know that
if you're
falls
comfortable
into
with it, I'm
sexual
fine.
harassment. There's a chain of command for sexual harassment.
but
There's also section 6.9 in the charter, removals and suspensions, which
But
talks
there's
about.
also, it also goes by the union contracts.
Right.
So
So,
6.9 talks
I mean,
about any,
whatever, if
Well,
there's a
okay.
DPW guy has a problem, it goes to supervisor hearing, then it goes to the department head, and then after the department head, it goes to the select board. And then
Okay.
If it goes beyond that, then it's arbitration.
I think
we
it goes
have
to
time.
Anthony.
Pretty sure we're missing it.
Yeah, it goes to Anthony and whatnot.
So I have a question back on 4-4, Part B. Should Chief Administrative Officer be capitalized?
no, because we didn't define it as such. There's not a
Okay.
title for it. For what B?
B.
No, I don't think so, because it's not a
Okay.
title.
I have a question. Where are the goals established by the select board? How does that get accessed?
That's in his contract.
No, I know, I'm asking though, where are they? How does a person know what the goals of the select board are? Are you saying they're written in an employment contract with Sean?
They're an
An
employment
exhibit.
contract, but they're also in the annual evaluation we receive from the select board. It's based on goals and what that ascertainment of those goals is.
Because it would seem to me that goals for select board would be a public issue, right? I mean, the time.
Well, you're talking select board goals for the town administrator or select board goals for
No.
the
Oh, no, I thought, I read that to say the goals established, so they're goals for the town administrator established by the select board. That's what you're saying. Okay.
And I have a question. Are they public or is that part of
No.
your evaluation?
No, actually, I think, Sean, I think this is talking, she's reading, the town administrator shall be the chief administrative officer of the town of Dartmouth for the policies and goals established by the select board. I don't think they're talking about your contract here. That's different. He has goals and objectives that are written into his contract as an exhibit.
You're
This
talking,
is saying that he's the guy in charge. The select board sits there as the policymakers and says, we'd like to accomplish this or that, and they rely upon the town administrator to do the work
Okay.
to establish.
That's what I thought it said. So my question is, I haven't seen those. Where would those be? The goals?
I think they're so broad. I don't think there's one page that's listing them. Every time something happens, they say, hey, let's do this. This is a goal of ours. Or
Yeah.
they create new policies as they work on new issues. If something comes up with a licensing issue, all of a sudden we'll start creating new policies relating to licensing of certain establishments.
Just
Or
within the last year, we have Lake Nokichoke, we have the marijuana overlay, we have host agreements, we have I mean, just a lot of stuff to deal with. I mean, it changes, it changes almost on it gets added to almost on a weekly basis, whatever shows up. So to have I mean, really the major goal of the select board would be to make everybody's life just a little bit better every day, and that's pretty much it. You just try to do that. There's really no substantial goal because sometimes you're dealing with whatever happens, that happens to come up.
We could define it better, on a broad scale, the select board is promoting fiscal responsibility through the town's financial policies. It's, land space and open space and conservation is done through conservation, our open space plan, now our master plan and the harbor management plan. And it's also economic development, looking to, work with businesses to maintain what we have and for our commercial development in town, and also for housing is another goal of the select board, which is working with the developers to, we have 40B developments, but we also have other housing developments as well. So, it's certainly worth defining on a broad scale, but generally when, I think you look at the board throughout the years and what their goals have been, they're along those lines to kind of maintain, the town running in an efficient manner, but also spurring development, acquiring grants to do analysis, to do studies, in developing plans for the future.
which is part of the annual town report.
Mhm.
all of those areas that you've mentioned are encompassed in the annual town report, which should give the reader an idea of what's going on in our town.
Or what
What
happened,
direction we're
what
heading.
happened in the last year, yeah.
So under section B, powers and duties, we have one, the daily administration of the offices of the select board and the affairs of the town. Two, the preparation of the articles and warrant for annual and special town meetings. Three, overall responsibility for the town budget with the supervisory authority over the director of budget and finance. Then four, the hiring, supervision, and termination of department heads determined by town general bylaws, except for those department heads whose appointment is presently specially provided by general or special law.
I have no
What
idea.
department head is that?
I have no
School,
idea.
school superintendent,
Harbor master,
harbor master. Right now, the DPW director,
Yeah, and the police chief.
police chief.
Who appoints the police chief?
The select board.
Select board. That's by statute.
Yeah.
Harbor masters by statute.
But the major, and I'm almost, I'm gonna say, technically, I believe the planning director,
Yeah, that's by statute.
the board of health director.
We can also change those through
Right, a
Home rule,
a
but-
collaborative. I mean,
Home-
it's done
home rule.
collaboratively.
through the charter. We can change anything, those statutes
Yeah.
too.
I
if
mean,
we
it's
ever want to.
done, the planning director was done collaboratively, you know,
So then maybe the better question is, what department heads are,
Actually, I think the director of public health too. And
Yes.
maybe the Concom agent are hired by those respective boards by statute. Again, we can change that in the charter.
so when we say except for those department heads, so the hiring, supervision, and termination. I think we
Right.
go back to supervision and termination. Superintendent was covered under the duties of the school committee.
yeah, but it's also by statute. That's also by statute and for general and special law. So,
But what I'm saying is, do these other positions that you listed,
Mhm.
would their committee
Yeah.
be in charge of supervising them, evaluating them, terminating them?
yes,
By statute, yes. For
Yeah.
instance, the town planner.
those who hire, those are the ones who fire.
Again, we can change any of those.
But I can tell you, so this is a good,
Can't change
the
the school
the department heads are
Can't change
part of a,
any them. You can't change the school committee. You might be able to change other things, but you can't by charter change
No.
the school committee.
no, we're not looking to do that, but I can tell you with department heads, whether they work for an elected board or they've been appointed, they're part of a union. And part of that collective bargaining contract, the last one is that they have performance evaluations annually. And the way it works is if the department head works for an elected board, they get a performance evaluation by that elected board and myself, and they're combined. If they do not work for an elected board, they get an evaluation by the town administrator. So that's how it's operated.
So I think we need to be very clear on which fall under you and which ones fall under those other department heads.
I think if you just leave it just the way it is, it says it right there. Presently specially provided by general or special law. That leaves it right there, and then it's elaborated further down in the document.
that allows for the state to make changes as well. They may take, or
Yes.
remove positions under state general law, and that then create a conflict with the charter if we went that far to name them.
Yeah, I don't think you'd never want to copy what's in a statute. That's made a mistake that's made all the time in bylaws, what I always correct when I correct a bylaw. you don't want to put something that's repetitive of statute. If you want to change a statute, because it is a home rule, charter allows us to do home rule, you can change it. But if you're referencing statute, you just reference a statute, because otherwise what happens is if the statute changes and the charter doesn't change, you have an inconsistency there. So,
Sean McInnes, should there be a statement in here that says that you also you have oversight on contracts? I'm just thinking about it in terms of what you just said. If a board of volunteers, for example, doesn't follow the correct process, wouldn't you have a role in stepping in and saying, this is what needs to be done, these are the steps that need to be followed, et cetera?
I guess I didn't follow that 100%, Terry. So you're talking about collective bargaining contracts, and then you
Yeah,
mentioned
because
about,
you don't have direct oversight over some, we've just determined that you don't have direct oversight, but you do, and I know I can think of one situation where you had to step in and say, this is how we need to do this process, because you have volunteers on these boards and committees.
yes.
So should there be a statement in there in addition to the hiring, supervision, termination, and oversight of, I don't know if you'd call it collective bargaining contracts in the town or whatever you would say to, because there would be a personnel issue if that didn't happen, right?
Right.
I think we've already talked about this, the concern with the DPW superintendent being appointed by
Yeah,
an appointed or being bargained by an appointed board.
right.
yeah, and that's further down. I have a comment on that further down in this section. When we
Okay.
talk about the Department of Public Works.
So do I.
Would there be any other department that falls in that same?
Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think.
But appointed, how about the Concom agent? Who does that, Sean?
Isn't the ComCon agent part of the steelworkers?
No.
It is.
Oh,
yeah,
it is now.
Yeah,
It wasn't before.
it wasn't before, but that's a position that we hire. It's been collaborative, so it hasn't been like, the one person taking control. So if, like with the environmental affairs coordinator, when he left, we worked with the conservation. Generally what we say is we go to the board and say, we're putting a team together. I mean, Sean, you've been through this, but we're putting a team together. Do you want, one member of your committee or two members, just enough not to be a quorum? And do they want to be involved in the process? Internally, we have the hiring process all set, the advertising, when it just comes down to the interviews, that's when we get them involved. And then, it's a democratic process to pick the final applicant. So, another example is the Veteran Services Officers. That falls underneath the town administrator, but we have the Veterans Advisory Board. We got them involved in the process as well. So it's
We
hard to
just don't
say.
want someone going rogue, as we said earlier, by saying, this looks like I can do, or we can do this by ourselves and we don't need you.
Right.
The school department does that for the administration, not the town.
School department is a separate.
Yeah, they're
by law,
totally, they are
can't do
totally
Yeah.
separate.
About that, so.
Sean,
don't know about
who
other
negotiates these labor contracts? Do we negotiate them or do you just ride along with what other towns do?
No, we negotiate them. We have a team. So we have a labor attorney that supports us and sits through it in the process. And we have an internal team that helps to.
And is it an internal team as your staff or does it include some of the board members and chairs?
No, we don't generally do not have members of the public involved. I mean,
But
collective
our,
bargaining.
our negotiations with the Steelworkers Union, for example, have nothing to do with what they've negotiated with other towns?
I mean, they can from this, to get into collective bargaining. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Steelworkers is a broad national
Yes,
union
I
that
know.
has representatives. So yes, they can come down and say, we want A, B, and C, and D because
But Dartmouth's contract is specifically negotiated by Dartmouth. It's not a ride along.
they have a representative from the Steelworkers, the national
No,
office.
I understand that, but whatever contract we have with the Steelworkers may or may not be the same language on a given issue that some other town has with them.
No, definitely not.
Okay, that's
So we
what
have we have 11 total collective bargaining units in town, including the schools, and the contracts,
All
as
all
much
are
as they're the
germane to
same,
Dartmouth.
they're different.
Yeah, all are germane to Dartmouth.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to know. We had 16 units at the Globe and we negotiated with 13 of them separately, but the sheet metal workers, the pipe fitters and the carpenters we just rode along with the Boston Building Trades. So I just wanted to understand the difference.
We have something similar with our DTEA, which is the Dartmouth Town Employees Association, which has units inside of it that
Yeah.
are diverse.
So section 5 has been scratched out. In addition to those powers, it looks like something you may have added, Anthony, but then scratched it out.
No, I didn't add it. I took it out.
You just took it out.
I just added it. Yeah,
Okay.
because it was listing powers and then it said in addition, additional power. It didn't make sense to me that they had, I just called it general administrative responsibilities
Okay.
and listed them.
So that general administrative responsibilities is 5.
Yes.
Okay. So then 6 would be supervise, direct, and be responsible through department heads and supervisors for the efficient administration.
No, that's
I think it'd be
5A.
like 5A.
That's
yeah.
5A.
5A.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it very well.
They had subcategory, an unnecessary subcategory. They had language in addition to this, general powers, general responsibilities. I just called 5 general responsibilities. and then
Okay.
Instead of having 5A1, 5A2.
All right, so then
I
there's
just had
5,
5A,
and then
5B,
A and
5C. Yeah. They just had an extra level of subcategories I thought was unnecessary. It's just formatting. It's just a formatting difference.
Sean McInnes, in your experience, brief though it is so far in the town, is there anything that's missing from this list that should be in there that you can think of?
No, but as we go through this and we talk about, the hiring and the supervision, it really, it goes back to what we talked about, weeks ago, which was like, well, it's a very decentralized charter. And, what the board wants to decide to do moving forward, if you decide to rein that in a little bit, we talk about elected positions, that changes a lot of this. So if you say, hey, this board's not elected anymore, it's appointed, well, then any oversight they have over, staffing oversight, if I think the planning board off the top of my head. So if you said that's changing to appointed, well, then they don't really have oversight over the planning director anymore. And then that falls under the town administrator. And then you've got to kind of just think about this charter more and where does that have, what's the impact throughout the charter of making some of these changes. So, the responsibility, it's pretty similar, but it is, like I said, decentralized. We talked about the DPW director, how that works. And it's a little vague in the charter. And I think for the way things are set up, it's appropriate. But if, things were centralized more, it would change a little bit more to reflect that in these responsibilities.
I think we should add cleaning in there too. Clean the
Yeah.
hallways.
We
With COVID, I was doing that.
empty
too.
trash.
So
So
that's a
Maritime
bigger,
Center.
that's a bigger conversation for later, because getting back to, I think Steve Mello said a couple meetings ago, the question of perception and what people think of appointed versus elected, and that probably needs some more data at some point, further as we get further along.
It does. I mean, this is where it starts to get, as you get into the meat of the charter, then little changes that you want to look at, really ripple through. So do you want to be a more centralized form of government, or do you want it to be more decentralized? It's like up to the board and the community what they want. But when you start going through things like this, I think you need to, this committee needs to decide kind of broadly, we want to go in this direction, and then craft the charter or, make the changes that reflect that. We're just going through it for the first time. I think once we go through the whole thing, you all sit down and say, all right, what direction do we want to go in, and then go back through it again.
So bringing us back to this particular page, there are under 5, which is general administrative responsibilities. There's A through G. If everybody would just read through those and say if there's a question, or are we okay? with A through G.
What article are we on now, Heidi?
But we're still on 4-4.
Oh, 4-4.
Under Department of Executive Administrator, General Administrative Responsibilities. We're on page 3 of the document that was sent to us.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
To your point, Terry, one of the items there, well, I think it's C now, coordinate all activities of the town departments or agencies by ensuring the effective use of resources, equipment, and personnel. That sounds nice, but when you have like a Department of Public Works, that's a point that the director is appointed by the Board of Public Works, and we go back to this and we mentioned this in the FinCom, it's organization, it's a government by consensus. So everyone works collaboratively, but when push comes to shove, if you went in and said, hey, DPW director, it says here that I'm responsible for this. And they said, no, it says over here that I'm responsible because I'm appointed by this board and I answer to the board. Those are things that need to get cleared up.
No, I know. When I was on the youth commission, I simply wanted the person who was there at the time, not the new person, just to set goals. And there was a union effort, and I met with the previous town administrator to say, I don't understand what this seems like simple management practice to me. It wasn't that simple, so.
Any questions for this
So-
section?
Just philosophy, Sean. Do you have a feeling about government and the size of a town like Dartmouth, whether it should be decentralized or more centralized, or in your experience, is there a threshold when you start talking about a budget of roughly $100 million where you can't be decentralized anymore, or whatever the right words are?
We are probably more decentralized than any other town our size.
I was asking Sean, that's why I wanted his philosophy.
We are, Dartmouth's a large town and it's in an area that's next to 2 cities, but the other communities surrounding the 2 cities in Dartmouth are small, and they're small government. And, Dartmouth was based on that type of small government. Now we've grown, it's a diverse community. There's a lot of commercial development, a lot of residential, there's conservation. So it's a large community, almost city-like, and we have about 2 cities. So the form of government should be more reflective of that, which would be more centralized and more consolidated to provide better services. And we've been fortunate with the staff that we have in place that are willing to work collaboratively, but there's been times in the past where, they have not. And there's been some infighting and decentralization, and there's been a lot of, I don't know what they do over there because we don't care what they do over there. And so no, this is, you're asking my opinion now. That's only my opinion. Is yes, it needs to be centralized more and managed, that way so we could be more nimble. I mean, when you have to manage by consensus and collaboration, things take a lot more time. So when you want to act quickly and move decisively, it can be difficult to gain that consensus, and it takes time, and it can take years. And not that a centralized form of government is perfect. It's certainly not. I think you can look at anywhere.
So
but-
there's a whole, I mean, this is not the right place, but I mean, there's a whole bunch of, you can have like they do in New Bedford, have a city council and a mayor. You could have a town manager, which is different from a town, from what I can figure out, different from a town administrator that reports to a city council.
Mhm.
So how in your experience, how are these things, like if we wanted to make that decision, I'm not saying we do, is there a rationale for that someplace? It's got to be, there has to be a rationale. Something happens, and then you have to consider doing things differently.
This is where you're at. We've had
Okay.
some discussions here that have been substantive as to involvement. We can run numbers and look at metrics on what the participation's been like. If you're, and then Sean mentioned earlier, if your form of government is based on 2,000 people out of 16,000 registered voters coming out and making decisions, I mean, is that fair? And yes, it's great that they are involved, but then you've got a population that isn't. And
I
they
guess
could
what
be-
and maybe there isn't any. I'm looking for like where the tripwires are when everybody goes, aha, we passed some milestone that we should be considering a different form of government. But then I understand an appointed committee really doesn't have that authority, does it? I don't
No,
think.
no, but I
No,
mean,
that would
it's-
definitely be a elected charter.
right, but this committee could, we could go through the process and do the workshops and say, you could say, hey, yeah, you know what? We're at that point where this is the tipping point. We need an elected board here to make decisions.
An
because we think-
elected charter commission to look at
Correct.
making substantive changes.
Right,
I don't know. I mean, having $100 million budget thereabouts is serious money.
it is.
And needs to be addressed professionally. Not to saying that it isn't.
I won't take offense to that, Brian.
Right.
Not to say it isn't, well, no, to get me right. I mean, I understand your collaboration point, and that's the way we've done it in the past. But when you start talking about that kind of money, it starts changing the dynamics a little bit. And
Oh, yeah.
your point about being nimble and being able to make decisions in a timely manner, so it doesn't cost people money and degrade services becomes important. But I'm just wondering if there are tripwires that other towns have experienced where everything points to changing.
Well, generally, yeah, usually a tripwire is, something happens financially that is a hardship on the community, and that they look at it and say, we can't afford this, and what happened, and how did we get here? And other than that, they look at it and say, oh, I don't know, like, things seem like they're running fine. When you're looking at things internally, yes, you're juggling all the plates and spinning the plates, and people think everything's fine, but they don't see how the sausage is made. So maybe when
So
if they looked in deeper, they'd say, well, yeah, we need to change some things. Yeah, we're getting by and things are working. But in reality, if we really want to be, a top of the line community, not that Dartmouth isn't, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, if you want to get to the next level, then you've got to make these changes when times are good, not when things are dire and you need to
But
act.
usually, in my experience, these sort of town governments, the only way you get that is to have some, as you were just alluding to, a crisis that makes everybody say, oh, we're paying attention. We have to do things differently.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
please
they
don't
have
wish
to-
a crisis on us.
Oh,
I want
Okay.
to call on
can't
Steve
spell it.
Taylor. Steve has had his hand up.
No, sorry.
This is just a personal opinion. I want to make it clear that it's my opinion, not one that necessarily is shared by my planning board colleagues. But in the short time that I've been in elected office in Dartmouth, the two scariest things that frighten me are that an enormous number of people in our town, including a significant number of our town officials, don't really understand the economics of what's happening to us, not in a crisis. A crisis is obvious to everybody, but I would call it something more like a cancer. And when we are losing money constantly because of the kinds of development we approve versus the kinds that we don't, and people don't understand the economics of that, it's really hard to make good decisions. And from a really big picture perspective, and this isn't true of just us, this goes to other places too, there's an assumption that growth is good or that growth is inevitable. And that's not necessarily true for the health of a town, but we don't lose any money when we leave a green field or a green forest undeveloped. We lose, I've figured out it's between $2 and $3 million a year. I don't really know the numbers because we haven't done the cost of community services yet, but we lose that for about every 1,000 houses that we build. There's about 1,000 houses left that we might be able to build. That would be another 2 to 3 million if we do that. And yesterday afternoon, there was a story that illustrates this. There was a meeting of the Parks and Rec Board addressing a group of citizens who came forth saying, we would like to have pickleball courts in our Parks and Rec area. It's something that all ages can play. It's not very expensive. And so they had a nice discussion about it, but the Parks and Recs people, who were not unsympathetic, they simply said, we don't have any money. I mean, maybe we could paint some stripes on an old tennis court, but we don't have enough money to do anything else. But if you back up and think about why do they not have any money to do anything else, it's because the town has had this hidden thing where every few years we're losing another $1 million. because we aren't aware of what's hurting us. And taxes don't go up nearly as fast. And of course, nobody wants taxes to go up nearly as fast. But labor cost, health and benefits cost, the cost of all that stuff goes up way faster than inflation. So the simple answer conceptually is, if we don't grow our workforce and we don't do things that force us to grow our workforce, we'll be in better financial shape. But an awful lot of people just don't understand that because we don't make it easy for them to understand. And I think whatever we could do to help with that would be really good for the town.
In essence,
Steve, the story you were just telling about pickleball was not a Dartmouth recreation issue, right? It was another community?
Well, I thought it was Parks and Recs in Dartmouth that this group went to meet with last night. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Guys, I gotta sign out. I have another
Okay,
meeting.
I'm just gonna tell you that they have painted pickleball courts in Dartmouth on town property.
Oh, yes, it's been done
Actually-
once. Don't get me wrong. I know it's been done once. They were appealing for more efforts. And listen, this isn't a squabble about pickleball. This is a squabble.
No, I just
about
didn't know if you were talking about our
understanding the
town.
finances of why we're always low on money. I think there's a pretty clear reason for that a lot of people don't really grasp.
Well, Steve, I think, this is the charter review committee, so this
I
is,
understand.
your topic is a much broader discussion, and, I'm happy to
get
talk to you personally anytime to talk about why costs are the way they are and what things are costing and what the impact is on the community. I think you've got some of it right, but not all of it, or, some of it's philosophical and, that's fine.
I'll cop to that. I get that, but I think the big picture is still there. There's a lot of lack of understanding of the finances.
Well,
Thank you. On that note, and looking at the time, I'm going to propose that our schedule of our next meetings. 2 weeks from now would be April 7th. So our choices are April 7th, April 14th, April 21st falls during the school vacation week, April 28th.
So those are the dates you're proposing to have more meetings or?
Nope,
yes?
nope, I'm just saying
No.
those are the four Wednesdays in April.
you said the 21st is during school vacation.
Yes.
How about the 14th and the 28th?
If I could make a comment on that, it would be helpful to me. I don't know if anybody else cares, maybe Cody, but it'd be helpful to me if we could make our Wednesday meetings on a different Wednesday than when the Serped meetings are and not have them overlap.
Well, Anthony is usually tied up on the third Wednesday of the month. So that would be the 21st of the next month.
When's the Serped meetings?
I think
Well,
that
when's
there
your
is one on
Serped
the
meeting?
28th. I think on the 14th, there isn't one. On the 28th, I think there is one.
Yeah,
So
'cause
is Serped always the last Wednesday of the month? How do they assign theirs?
I'm not sure that I know. It could be that it's the last one, but I can't say that with any certainty. I just know that the last several have been overlapped.
Yeah, because I know I have a Serped meeting on Tuesdays. So, I mean, let's put it this way, the 7th, I have a board meeting on the 5th. I have a work board meeting on the 6th. I have a library meeting on the 7th at 4. And if we have another one, there'd be 4 meetings during the course of the week, and my wife would be,
Well, what about the 14th? That may not be a problem, or is
the
it?
14th is fine for me, and the 28th is fine for me.
I may be out.
I'm gonna be out of town, but I
14th,
might be able to
28th.
make it from where I'm gonna be. So don't cater to me.
Steve Mello, you had said something?
Yeah, mom turns 80 on the 14th, so maybe not for me, but don't let that stand in the way.
Well, happy birthday.
That's what I'm hoping to tell her.
Absolutely. Without a mask, maybe. All right, so I'm gonna say the 14th and the 28th of April, our next 2 meetings.
Okay.
Good. That sounds good.
okay.
And then if somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn,
I will make that motion.
thank you, Brian, seconded by
Carrie,
Terry Ham. Thank you very much, Terry. All in favor, Heidi Brooks, yes. Brock has signed off. David Cunha,
Yes.
Terry Ham,
yes.
Sean McDonald,
Yes.
Steve Mello,
Yes.
Brian O'Hare,
Yes.
Steve Taylor,
Yes.
And Mary Waite, because she can't speak, typed in yes.